For many of you that know Mantle Ministries, you'll know that I've been covering American Christian history for years. I've been in the ministry for over 40 years, and I got the name Mantle Ministries because my wife and I were talking one morning about passing on a legacy, a mantle like Elijah did Elisha, to another generation. So I began to travel and try to teach young people about the heritage of America and our faith of our founding fathers. But more than that, it began to dawn on me as I got older that I must pass a legacy on to my children. And the Bible is so full of that. It tells about the fathers teaching the children when they walk, sit, and stand. It talks about the fathers leaving a heritage to their children when they ask questions. How did these things happen? And we live in a culture now that is kind of self-centered. They're not spending a lot of time thinking of the future. I remember in Pollyanna a scene where Carl Malden says, "Death comes unexpectedly." And the entire sermon that he gives is to put the fear of hell in those that are listening. Of course, little Pollyanna is terrified and wondering what in the world is going on. She's just a young girl about 12 or 13 years of age. But death does come unexpectedly, and most of us don't ever even think about death. We're so busy living that we don't think of planning for our death. It sounds odd, but yet I believe it's wise. Jesus planned for his death and prepared his disciples. And he said that he would go, and he told them various times that he would go. I know they didn't understand, but he still tried to prepare them. So I'm going to challenge us listening to do things in your life that prepares not only yourself, but your children, and perhaps your children's children, by what you do now while you're living. And you don't have to wait till you're old, but it seems that as you get older, the pearly gates seem a lot closer. And so I began that conquest of preparing my children when I wrote this life story. It's called The Little Bear Story, the story of a retarded gopher skinner. Now, I didn't write this so that I could sell it to people as I traveled throughout all the states and various conferences and locations that I went. I really wrote this because I wanted to leave something for my children to remember me by. Now, my dad died when I was 7, and so I figured, well, what if I die prematurely? So I worked feverishly when I was in my late 30s, early 40s to accomplish this biography. And so that is a step in the right direction. The preface to this book is not about how great I am. The preface of this book is how great you are, and that you need to sit down and begin to write all the things that God has done in your life to prepare them for their children. And how many people do that? Very few. Very few take the time to record all the deeds that God had done into their lives. Because the day is coming, and I always say this kind of humorously, your children will love you much more after you're gone. It seems that when we're around, our children just like, oh, well, it's just, they're there, and even our grandchildren like, oh, it's just Grandpa Little Bear or Grandma that's coming over to visit. But you know what? When we get older and die, they're going to do this, just as you did. If you're already in your 60s on up, I bet you've said this, oh, if I could just talk to my dad and mother one more time. And better yet, if I could have interviewed my grandparents and even been smart enough to know what to ask them. But I was so busy as a young person thinking about here and now that I never considered eternity. And now I wished I would have asked them so-and-so. Do you know what? You can circumvent. I wished that I would have. Your children will see what you did do. Your genealogy, your heritage, your life, the things that God has accomplished in you. Make them available to your children and to your children's children. Who knows the generation after that, but start with at least that. So some of you can take a camera. If you're a good communicator, just sit at a desk, sit by the couch, sit in front of a camera or stand in front of a camera and share with your children the things that God did in your life. Don't say they're insignificant. They're very significant. Everything that you have done and accomplished and what God has done to bring you to salvation is most significant. The angels rejoiced when you came to Christ. You are significant. Leave that heritage to your children. I can't implore it enough. And so many people say, well, I'll get around to it, and they don't. And they end up dying. And they left very little in way of remembrance for their children's children. I pray that you'll keep this in your mind and that this devotion will motivate you to start and earnestly follow through and continue to write until you're finished and you write your life story to your children and to your children's children. I leave you with this word to pause and ponder.